Today we're talking about anxiety and an ancient Buddhist breathing technique that can stop anxiety in its tracks, especially when you're having one of these panic attacks that I know many people experience these days in our overstimulated society when we're walking around with these things all the time. Even I am not immune to this, jumping from one thing to the next to the next. So by the end of this video, you will understand the root causes of your anxiety from an ancient perspective, and you will have the ancients' cure for crushing these panic attacks. So, with that being said, let's get right into the video. The monkey mind. The monkey mind is everybody's mind. Your mind, my mind, all of us as human beings, it's in our nature to jump from one thought to the next, to the next, to the next. It's something that you can't really run away from in today's society. And our minds are not equipped to handle so much information at once. When we think far into the future and we begin to go out further and further, our lives take less of a form and more of just an essence. And for many people, that is just not enough to be faithful in the essence of what lays ahead. But let's get right into the Buddhist technique. So, Buddha, did he have anxiety medications? Absolutely not. Most of the ancients did not have any sort of these medications. And they may have even experienced these anxiety attacks, these panic attacks. But they were very tapped in with their breathing. Now, Osho talks about this technique. And when I tell you this technique, you're going to think, wow, this is super simple. But no, there's actually more of a subtlety to it. There is a mindset that comes along with this practice. And so what you're going to do is, first of all, you're going to find a quiet place, especially if you're having a panic attack. You're going to remove yourself from the situation that's causing you anxiety to the best that you can. Then you're going to sit down and you're going to take a deep breath. But when you're taking this breath, you're almost going to follow the breath from when it starts right here in your nostrils. You're going to take a breath through your nose. And you'll feel the breath start going through, and you want to actually move with the breath. You're going to move your consciousness with the breath and be very mindful of how this breath is moving through your body. Then this breath will start to fill your lungs, right? And when it starts to fill your lungs, they're going to get to a point where you can't, take any more air in. Your lungs are going to be full. In this very moment, there is a short, just for a millisecond, there is a moment where the breath begins to turn back up. And you want to hang there. You want to hang there in your breath when your lungs are full. And this moment, Osho calls it I have such a hard time saying this. He calls it the beneficence. This is a moment where we are neither alive nor dead. Clinically, technically, we're dead, right? Because if you're not breathing, then technically you're dead. But of course, we can acknowledge this for such a brief moment, just a little short amount of hang time, that we're obviously going to exhale the breath and inhale another breath. Now, in this moment, there's a gas exchange happening in your lungs. If I come from this from a medical perspective, your lungs are filled with little tiny bubbles that look like little tiny microscopic grapes called alveoli. And these fill with air. And around them, there's tons of little blood vessels. And in this very single moment is when the gas exchange actually happens. Now, when you're having an anxiety attack, the reason why you're breathing so heavily and fast, some people who have really severe anxiety attacks, what will happen with them is their hands will actually curl up like this. They'll feel a lot of tension in their body. You might even have pins and needles in your fingers and your feet. And from a physiological perspective, you've been breathing so fast for so long that you haven't given time for those alveoli to actually create a gas exchange, to trade their carbon dioxide for the oxygen. So instead, what you're doing is you're just blowing off all your carbon dioxide. And contrary to popular belief, your body needs an equal balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen to function properly. Then everything becomes off balance. And that's when the brain starts freaking out, because the brain monitors the levels of carbon dioxide in your blood to be able to regulate how much oxygen and how fast you should be breathing. So when you throw this mechanism off, that's when you start spiraling down into a panic attack, because you start freaking out. Your mind is freaking out, and you start breathing faster and faster and faster, and it's like a runaway train at that point, right? So the Buddhist technique addresses that by really acknowledging that gap when your lungs are full and your breath just stops for a minute before turning back up. You want to hang there and, even a couple seconds. I say 3 seconds. When you take the deep breath in, it's really important you follow the breath in. And this is a brief moment when you notice that your monkey mind, for a fraction of a second, will become very quiet. This is because your brain only needs two things, my friend. It needs oxygen and glucose to function. So glucose is just sugars that you're breaking down in your body, feeding the brain, and oxygen is, without oxygen, you will lose consciousness almost immediately. So in that brief moment, you're hanging there. Gas exchange is happening. You're allowing the carbon dioxide and oxygen to be traded properly again. And then the monkey mind quiets down just for a second. Then you're going to turn the breath back up. And just like you followed the breath in, you're going to follow the breath out, like you're leading a guest out of your house. Like you're guiding a guest to the house. When you have friends over, you're going to be all on the couch, right? In your lungs. And then you're all going to get up together and you're going to walk to the door and you're going to lead them out and you're going to bid them farewell, right? You can do the same thing here. And you're going to do this over again. And you're going to do this as a very mindful process, okay? And now you can think of this every time you hang down in the beneficence, every time you hang in that fraction of a second where your lungs are full and the exchange is happening, you can think of it as like a neutral gear in a car, in a stick shift, okay? When you want to go from the fifth gear to the fourth gear, you got to pass through neutral every time, right? And the brain's freaking out because it's not passing through neutral when it's doing this gas exchange. So you're going to be very mindful of this neutral gap. And let's say your panic attack has gotten out of control, you got pins and needles. Consider yourself in sixth gear, okay? You're in sixth gear. Your brain's freaking out. Gas exchange isn't happening properly. So what you're going to do is you're going to calm yourself down and try and, stay in that hang time for a couple seconds every time. And slowly you will see you'll go from sixth gear to neutral in the beneficence to fifth, right? And then you're going to go to fourth, and then you go to third, and you're going to keep going down into the gears, and you'll find your breath will start slowing down and slowing down and slowing down until you get back down to roughly 18 to 20 breaths a minute is considered normal. I'd say probably 12 to 20 breaths a minute is considered normal. And this is a technique that you can even integrate into your meditation practice. And once I started doing this technique and I became more mindful, you see, with PTSD, your mind can run away from you a lot. You can start to really, especially if something ticks you off or makes you angry, you really just can run with it if you let it. And this is a technique you can also use to reel back in the monkey mind. So you may not even be having a panic attack, but you start to feel your mind running away from you. You want to ground yourself in the present? Do this. Do 3 to 10 breaths. And this is where many people will make a mistake. When you take the breath in, it's so important to move your consciousness with where the breath is going. Because if you just wait for the gap, you're still going to be breathing very fast. And I've talked to many patients having anxiety attacks, thinking they need to go to a hospital to get medication. And just through this technique, talking them down, got them to get right back down to their normal level of breathing. And they were so deeply grateful, at the same time in shock and awe, that just through my words, through some guidance, I was able to talk them back down to their grounded state of breathing. So try this out, my friend, and let me know, are you someone who struggles with anxiety? Have you used this technique to great effect? I'd love to know. And until next time, friends, peace.